Bradberry, this young, exciting corner, I like it. Mike Evans told us he is one of the best bump corners in football.
2019 will be a make-or-break season for Panthers cornerback James Bradberry as he enters the fourth and final year of his contract. In 2018, Bradberry showed what he's capable of as he played against a murderer's row of wide receivers, and he held his own for the most part. In 2018, James Bradberry's 15 pass breakups ranked 5th among all cornerbacks. He was also one of the most targeted cornerbacks in the league, but he held his own when he was targeted. His 48.6% catch rate allowed ranked 3rd, and he only allowed 2 yards of separation per target, which led the league. He did give up a lot of yards though, and we'll get into that in a minute, but overall, you have to be happy with what we saw from James Bradberry this past year and look forward to seeing what he can become in 2019. In Week 2, James Bradberry faced a familiar foe in Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones. On his first play, the Panthers come out in a cover 3 defense, which they play a lot, so just keep that in mind as we're going through the film. James Bradberry does a good job here recognizing the route quickly, driving on it, and limiting yards after the catch. I think he's done a really good job of driving on the underneath routes last year, which was an improvement from earlier in his career. On his next play, the Falcons are going to try to test James Bradberry vertically. He does a good job here as he backpedals, then transitions from a backpedal to a sprint, and now he's going to run step for step with Julio, giving Matt Ryan very little room to throw the ball. Excellent coverage there by James Bradberry. Now the one thing about James Bradberry is when he gets beat, the coverage is usually excellent, but he just fails to get his head around to find the ball. Here he gets a good jam at Julio at the line of scrimmage, and he's going to run with him step for step. But once the ball's in the air and Julio's looking back, Bradberry needs to look back and find the ball too. Since he's unable to find the ball, the Falcons are able to get the completion despite excellent coverage by James Bradberry. So that's one area I'd like to see him improve coming up this next year. 1 week later, James Bradberry was tasked with shadowing Bengals wide receiver A.J. Green. Unfortunately, Green left the game early, so there's not much film on the matchup, but Bradberry did an excellent job in the 2 targets he saw from Green. On his first play, he was able to recognize the screen pass quickly and come up and make the tackle. Then on his next play, he does a good job again in cover 3, recognizing these underneath routes and driving on the ball and forcing an incompletion. My favorite matchup of the year with James Bradberry was against the New York Giants and wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. Not that I thought James Bradberry got the better of the matchup, but just as a football fan, the back and forth, both guys had their share of W's, and it was just an entertaining matchup to watch. So let's get into it. On the catch on the sideline. On this next play, now when you watch this one, when you're evaluating quarterbacks, be careful about assigning blame, because although Bradberry's getting targeted, you like to see the underneath defenders get better drops in their coverages to undercut those passing lanes. Watch here as Mike Adams does that on this play instead. He gets a good depth in his drop, and he's able to cut underneath on this slant route and get the interception. So, be careful. Just because Bradberry gets targeted, it's not necessarily his fault. If the underneath zone defenders need to get proper drops in their coverage as well. Now let's get into some more. On this play, the Giants are going to run this bunch formation, which allows Odell to get a free release and prevents Bradberry from getting hands on him at the line of scrimmage. As you'll see here, Bradberry does a good job of recognizing the crosser and avoiding all of the clutter, and he's going to be able to come up and make a play on the ball. So again, excellent coverage there by James Bradberry. Let's watch James Bradberry get some work at the slot corner position. The Giants moved Odell Beckham around a lot to try to create favorable matchups, but James Bradberry followed him wherever he went. On this play, watch James Bradberry get a good jam on Odell at the line of scrimmage. He's going to out-physical him throughout the route and just shut it down before it ever gets started. James Bradberry, from what I've seen, is best when he's in press coverage. And if anyone asks, that flag was for illegal motion, not defensive pass interference. On his next play, James Bradberry's in the slot again against Odell Beckham. If you recall earlier, he bit on that first move and Odell was able to create separation on the out route. Again, Giants come back to that out route, but this time James Bradberry doesn't bite on the first move, and he's able to stay with Odell step for step. Now watch him get his head around. Now he's able to find the ball and get the pass breakup. This is what I want to see from James Bradberry more often. He shows good ball skills on this play, but we just got to be able to see that more consistently. Here, Bradberry's at the bottom of your screen. What happens here, Odell's going to get a subtle push off on JB, and he's going to create separation to get that catch on the sideline. They got to the red zone. James Bradberry got the better of the matchup. First, the Giants are going to try to run this slant and go route, but Bradberry does a good job of not biting on the first move, and now he's in position to be with Odell step for step and create a small throwing window for Eli to get him the ball. So there you get an incomplete pass, and then on this last play, the Panthers come out in a 2-deep safety look, and the Giants are going to once again try to hit Odell vertically in the end zone, but Bradberry does a good job here. Odell actually gets his hands on the ball on this play, but Bradberry's able to react quickly and get his hands on it to force the pass breakup. So he performed well down in the red zone to keep the Giants out of the end zone. Now on this last play, this is again where you just want to see better consistency from James Bradberry. The Panthers come out in this cover 4 shell, and the Giants are going to send Odell on this vertical route, basically splitting the safety Mike Adams in the corner James Bradberry. So once you're pretty much going to have double coverage on Odell on this play, but Eli throws him the ball anyway, and Odell's still able to make the play. So no matter who you want to blame on, somebody just has to make the play in that particular situation. Against Alshon Jeffrey, James Bradberry struggled a little bit, which is surprising since he does well against big body wide receivers typically, and played well against Alshon in 2017 on that Thursday night game. On this first play, the Eagles are just going to run this out route, and James Bradberry just going to be a step slow reacting. So Alshon's able to get separation on the break, giving Wentz a big throwing window to get a first down. Then in the red zone, we saw against Odell Beckham, Bradberry did a good job of not biting on that slant and go. But on this play, Alshon's going to hit Bradberry with that first fake, and Bradberry bites. Now he's out of position, and Wentz once again has a good throwing window to get the ball to Alshon for a touchdown. So with Bradberry, it's just about consistency. If he can defend double moves from Odell, he shouldn't have had issues with Alshon Jeffrey, who's not nearly as good as a route runner as Beckham. On his next play, Bradberry does better in coverage, but once we talked about the ball skills earlier, he has to be more consistent with that. He doesn't bite on the first move, which is good. He's going to be with Alshon step for step. But once the ball's in the air and Alshon turns around, Bradberry's late getting his head around, and Alshon's able to get a big gain on the play against JB. And then on this last play, the Eagles use this bunch formation, and Alshon Jeffrey's going to be lined up as your inside slot receiver. James Bradberry here, he tries to get a jam on Alshon at the line of scrimmage, but Alshon's able to avoid him. But what Bradberry does do, he's able to recover on the play, and he's able to get a pass breakup. So, it wasn't all bad this game, but you just like to see Bradberry be more consistent week to week. JB's best game of the year was probably against Tampa Bay when he was shadowing Buccaneers wide receiver Mike Evans. On the first play of the game, Tampa Bay tried to test him deep, but Bradberry was up to the challenge, running with Mike Evans step for step, finding the ball and able to break up the pass. Then on this next play, James Bradberry's at the top of your screen again in press coverage. Watch here as he gets a good jam on Mike Evans, and he's able to stop the route before it ever gets started. Then he's able to break on the ball and get a pass breakup here. So, again, in press coverage, I'm just really impressed with how James Bradberry performs, and I think hopefully we get to see that more often next year. On this next play, James Bradberry and Mike Evans again on the right side at the bottom of your screen. Bradberry is in cover 3 and a soft zone coverage here, but he does a good job of driving on that underneath route and forcing another incompletion. So as you can see, Tampa Bay just wasn't having much success testing James Bradberry this game. Down near the red zone at the bottom of your screen again, James Bradberry does a good job here as well as Tampa Bay tries to test him deep. Bradberry does a good job not biting on that inside move, and he's able to be with Mike Evans step for step again, and there's just nowhere for Ryan Fitzpatrick to throw the ball. On this last play, the Panthers are going to come out in this disguised cover 3 defense where Eric Reid's showing blitz, but he's got to hustle to get back center field to be that center, that deep third defender. Bradberry at the bottom of your screen lined up against Mike Evans. He does a good job here breaking on the underneath route, but he's just a step late, but luckily he limits any yards after the catch. But this was Mike Evans' only catch against JB this game, so overall, this was a very solid performance for James Bradberry. Then lastly, let's look at James Bradberry's reps against Detroit Lions wide receiver Kenny Golladay. Now this was a solid competitive back and forth matchup, although Kenny Golladay got the better of it in the end. But I still think it wasn't a bad game for Bradberry as I originally thought. On his first play, Bradberry does a good job of getting a jam at Golladay on the line of scrimmage, and then he does a good job as well as breaking on the ball, but Golladay just wanted it more as he snatched it from Bradberry and was able to get the first down on the play. On next, Bradberry is lined up against Golladay in press coverage at the bottom of your screen. Now I said Bradberry's best in press coverage, but Golladay is also a very strong physical receiver that's able to get corners off of him. So there he does a good job of, fighting with Bradberry at the line of scrimmage and getting enough separation to get the completion. Here, Bradberry at the top of your screen in off coverage. He does a good job in this deep route against Golladay as they try to test him vertically, but Bradberry once again just runs with him step for step and gives Stafford nowhere to throw the ball. And another win for Bradberry in this game in press coverage again at the top of your screen. They try to run this curl route against him, but Bradberry gets a good jam at the line of scrimmage to not allow him to get a free release, and a good job of staying with him step for step and breaking on the ball, leaving him no room to throw the ball. So Bradberry had his share of good reps in this game as well as bad ones. Later in the game, the Lions started moving Golladay around and try to get him free releases off the line of scrimmage. Here he's lined up as the inside slot receiver against James Bradberry. Bradberry's going to play off coverage, avoid that rub route, and then the Lions have an incompletion on this play. And then on here, in order to try to attack Bradberry in man coverage, the Lions try to use this rub concept where this tight end's going to run straight to him to kind of set like an illegal pick against him. But I guess it's only illegal if it's called. But once again, Bradberry does what he can to avoid the pick, and then he's able to limit any yards after the catch. Late in the game, Bradberry was tested a lot. On his first play, sometimes you just need a pass rush to help the coverage, and a corner can't cover forever. So I think here, you're going to see Galladay's going to see Matthew Stafford in trouble and on the run, so he's going to adjust his route a bit, and Bradberry just ends up chasing him all over the fields, and he ends up getting a completion. So this goes against Bradberry's negative coverage stats, but you can only cover for so long. So, I don't blame. He needs a pass rush to complement him. Let's just put it at that. On his next play, you see Bradberry in coverage again against Golladay at the bottom of your screen. He does a good job. Once Golladay breaks on that out route, Bradberry's right there with him, makes a play on the ball, and forces the incompletion. Then on the last round of the battle, Golladay had the finish and blow. Again, Bradberry at the bottom of your screen. He gets a good jam at the line of scrimmage, and he's right there in Galladay's pocket, step for step, but he just doesn't get his head around to find the ball. And Golladay just makes an excellent play and is able to get the touchdown for the Lions. So there you have it, the good, the bad, and the ugly with James Bradberry. Now, as you go through that video, just keep in mind who he's up against. These are some very good receivers, and they get paid to win too. And James Bradberry held his own for the most part against all of them. He has 15 pass breakups, ranked towards the top of the league. He's always in receivers' pockets. He just needs to start getting his head around more often and making more plays on the ball. And I think as he starts to do that, you'll see his interception numbers go up and be right there with his pass breakup numbers. So, don't look at it as a negative on James Bradberry just because he gets beat on certain plays. That's just the life of a cornerback. You take your bumps and bruises and you move on. But overall, I think he's a very solid cornerback, and I think during his contract year, we'll see the best James Bradberry we've ever seen.